Hey there, this is Eric Keller for Blue Patone. I love ZBrush extractor brushes. They're a great way to create a custom brush that samples both the surface detail information and the color information from an existing model. Then you can use these brushes for any of your own projects. So in this video, I'm going to show how I create an extractor brush that creates very realistic bone textures from sampling a Megascans model. So for this example, I'm going to start with some 3D scanned models. These were obtained from Megascans back in the day before it became Fab, but I'm sure these same models are available on Fab as well, or something similar. But in any case, we have some nice scanned bones here. So I got a skull and then this bone right here. As you can see at the moment, they don't have any poly paint on it. What I want to do is create a brush that samples not only the texture, the surface, but also the colors in the surface. So what I need to do is let's load the texture for this object here. So I'm going to go to the texture menu and choose import, grab my texture here, the albedo, import it into the texture palette. Now, something very important about this, you have to always remember that for some bizarro reason, ZBrush UVs are always flipped vertically. It's always been that way. They haven't changed it. I don't know why, but it's something that's very important to understand when you're importing a texture, because if I go down to the texture palette right now and choose texture map and select my texture, it doesn't look right. So, got to remember this one annoying step. Select your texture, flip it vertically, and then go into the texture map and select it again. Now we have a nice texture. I'm using the Skin Shade 4 material. I'm not going to sample material, but it's a nice material for being able to see the actual colors in the model. Okay, so right now we have a scanned model with a texture map on it. First thing we need to do is convert that texture map into poly paint so that the extractor brush can actually sample it. So let's see, how many points is this model at the moment? I think it's 10 million points. So that should be plenty for us to use. I don't need to subdivide it. It's most likely decimated anyways. If we zoom in, you can see, yeah, it's decimated. So what I need to do now is convert the texture into poly paint, which is very easy to do. Let's go back to our tool palette. Make sure we have RGB on, and RGB intensity is set to 100 for this brush. I'm just using the standard brush at the moment. And then in the tool palette, I'll go down to poly paint and choose poly paint from texture. And we don't see any difference. That's what we want. And if I turn off poly paint, you can see now it's poly paint and no longer a texture. Okay, so now we're ready to use the extractor brush. And what I'm going to do is go into the brush palette and press X, and we can see we have 3 different types of extractor brushes. We can use any of them. Really, the only difference is the stroke type. So this is standard draw stroke type. This is the drag dot, and this is the drag rect. So let's use this one for the moment, because we can always change it later. The next thing I need to do is an important step that's easy to forget. I need to store this point in undo history. So I'm going to hold the control key and click on this. That simple. Now I'm ready to go. I got my brush selected, I got my model, got my poly paint on my model. Let's choose a spot that looks like it might have a nice texture on here. This is going to be a repeating texture, so maybe I want to do something that's doesn't have too much variation in it. It's like maybe like a spot around here, something like that. So I'm going to press G, and that's going to convert the extractor brush into extract mode. You can tell because the brush turns bright blue. And now I'll just slowly drag a spot like that. And we see that we have an alpha and a texture. Now we can test it out. So sometimes this takes a few tries to get a brush that works well, but usually if you remember to store that undo history, it works okay. So I'm going to go to poly mesh here and press W to create a sphere. You can use any surface, it just needs something to draw on. I'm going to subdivide it so we got plenty of points to work with. Get up to maybe 4 million or 6 million. And switch to draw mode. I got my extractor brush, and let's see if I draw on here. Let's make sure we have poly paint on. Turn on poly paint. And there we go. So we have a nice brush here. And we could change the mode here if we want to set it to, say, drag rect. That works pretty well. And if we have something that we like, save the brush. So we can save this as wherever you want to save it. I'll just call it my bone brush 01. And let's do another one really quickly just to get a chance to repeat the process. So I'll select this bone right here. And again, another one that was obtained from Megascans way back in the day. A nice bone scan. And I need to import the texture. So I'll go into the texture palette, choose import, into the folder, grab the, I think these textures are all pretty much the same. So I'll use this one right here. Remember to go into the texture palette, select the texture. Make sure we have our select right texture. This one right here. It's a little bit hard to tell because we have all these different bones here. I think it's this one right here. Okay. Flip vertically. Go into texture map. Select that texture. That looks right. Might take a couple tries to get the right one, but I think that is correct. Right? Looks pretty good. So this model is, let's see here. 16 million points, plenty of points to work with. If it's low poly, you probably want to subdivide the model before you actually do your extraction, before you convert the texture map into polypaint. 16 million is plenty. So I'll go to polypaint and do polypaint from texture. There we go. Now let's choose a different extractor brush just to be different. We'll choose the drag rect. Same idea though, I'm going to hold the control key, click on my undo history, store that point in time, and then it doesn't really matter what the brush size here is, but I just want to be able to see it. So then I'll press G to go to sample mode, turns light blue, and now I'll just drag out. Give it a moment to process. That looks pretty good. If it looks really weird or behaves bizarrely, you can always try again. Remember to store that state in the history. That's usually the problem. But this looks pretty good. Nice little bone texture there. As you can see, we have not only the color, but also the surface information. And then if you store this brush, you have it for any future project, and it will store the texture and the alpha with it. So there you go, extractor brushes, very easy to use. And of course you can use it on all kinds of different stuff, not just bones, but bones are a nice one to demonstrate because it's kind of hard to create bone textures from scratch. And I usually have students ask how they can create realistic bones, and this is a great way to do it. Well, there you go. Now you know why I love ZBrush extractor brushes. So thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video for more cool ZBrush 2026 tips.
Bloop, ah, don't.